welcome back to Bengal Bites, your home for real, raw, unfiltered talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and the NFL. I'm your host, Derek. Relief. This is episode 11, the recap episode for the Bengals' first win of the season at home on Monday Night Football against the Los Angeles Rams, the rematch of Super Bowl 56. This was the Bengals' whiteout, white Bengal game, and also the Ring of Honor game where they inducted Boomer Esiason and Chad Johnson into the Bengals Ring of Honor. In our last episode, episode 10, we did a complete preview for this game against the Rams, and the biggest overriding story for that was Joe Burrow's health and the status of his right calf watch, as I called it. Go back and check out that episode for more of the details, but the big storyline was, would Joe Burrow be able to play in this game? We didn't know. It was a big question mark up in the air all the way up until the game. In this episode, episode 11, we're going to recap the Week 3 game against the Rams, and it's going to be a little bit different in this episode because I actually attended this game live in person at Paycor Stadium. So first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my game day experience, what I saw attending the game, and then I also watched the game after the fact on the recording. So I'll talk about what I saw and how it maybe was different from the live broadcast, but we'll still do the breakdown, all the key plays that happened throughout the game, key moments, interesting things, big performances by players and coaches and stuff like that. So we'll do a complete breakdown of the game, everything before, during, and after the game, post-game press conference interviews, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a big show, and we've got a lot to cover. But like I said, the most important message is Bengals got the first W, got that monkey off their back. We can all rest a little bit easier for at least this week. And as Bengals fans, we can all take a collective 2 steps back away from the ledge. Don't jump. Season's not over yet. Christmas has not been canceled. We can all still pay attention to the Bengals for the rest of the season. As we mentioned last episode, the big storyline going into this week was Joe Burrow's calf and whether or not he would be able to play. At the end of the Ravens game, we saw him pull up early at the end when he was throwing the touchdown pass to T. Higgins, trying to roll out to his right. He threw it, and then as soon as he threw it, he kind of hopped off, favoring that right leg. He said that he re-aggravated it a play or two before that, where it looked like he was trying to evade the rush, similar type of play where he had to get outside the pocket, scramble a little bit, and kind of put more stress on that calf. And he was able to make it through those last couple of plays, but then looked like the pain finally got the best of him, and he was really using that massage gun and working the gun on his calf, trying to get it loosened up. And he said he could have gone back into the game, but that led some people to speculate throughout the week, well, maybe he was dealing with the pain the whole game, because it didn't really look like on the play where he said he re-injured it, he didn't pull up or have any painful expression on his face to indicate that anything was wrong. Some people were saying maybe it was just something that he was kind of battling all game long, and finally once they scored that touchdown, psychologically he allowed himself to, he couldn't hold the pain back anymore, and it just became too much for him to bear. So who knows, but it was obvious that he was not anywhere close to 100%, and he was just kind of saying, we'll see how it feels day to day. Zach Taylor was saying the same thing. We don't know. We'll see day to day. So the week started off with a lot of confidence-inspiring words about Jake Browning and how good Jake Browning looked in training camp, and Jake Browning was just so good at practice and throwing these perfect passes to T. Higgins, yada, yada, yada. They were really setting it up to make it sound like Jake Browning was going to start this game, which really made me feel ill to my stomach. Just, huge knot in my stomach, like anxiety building every moment they mention how good Jake Browning is. This guy has never played. He's been in the league for 5 years, has completed 0 complete passes in the NFL. So if you're telling me this guy is going to be the starting quarterback on primetime national television Monday Night Football, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so embarrassing for the franchise, for everybody involved. Jake Browning, his family, they don't want this. That already had me a little bit on edge. We had Will Grier as the third string backup, but then Thursday or Friday, the Patriots swipe Will Grier off of the practice squad on their active roster. So they have 2 quarterbacks. And then people were talking about, well, maybe they'll bring back Trevor Siemian. But God, no, they're not bringing back him. They brought back Reed Sinnett. And then on Saturday before the game, they brought back A.J. McCarron for a workout and signed him to the practice squad. A.J. McCarron was a 5th-round pick of the Bengals in 2014. He was on the team between 2014 to 2017. He even played in that 2015-2016 playoff game against the Steelers where it looked like he had thrown the game-winning touchdown pass, and then we know what happened after that. The Steelers came back. Let's not talk about that. But anyway, old familiar face comes back into Cincinnati. He's been around. After he left Cincinnati, he went to a few different teams, Oakland, the Texans. I think he was in the Bills training camp. Most recently, he was in the XFL, Alternative Football League, and he led the XFL in touchdown passes this past season, I believe. So showing that he still had some ability to play football and getting another chance with the Bengals. So that's kind of good news, bad news situation. Like, hey, we remember him from Cincinnati and his former playing days, but by the fact that they're bringing in more quarterbacks, that was like, oh no, does this mean Joe Burrow's status is even more in doubt? Like, they lost Will Grier, they brought in Reed Sinnett and A.J. McCarron, and so it's like, oh, do they need like more quarterbacks because Joe Burrow's not going to be able to play? It really makes you wonder, like, what happened with Will Grier? Did they intentionally not protect him? Because you can protect people on your practice squad so they don't get sniped by other teams. So it was like, did they just not really like Will Grier that much and decided to let him go? They obviously didn't like Trevor Siemian because he had plenty of opportunities and they definitely didn't want him back. But no Trevor Siemian, thank God. But A.J. McCarron is back. But even at that point, I had resigned myself to going to the game. Early in the week, I was asking my friend, because he bought the tickets already. I was like, dude, like, I really do not want to drive all the way down there. It's a 2.5-hour drive one way just to get to Cincinnati. Like, I don't want to drive 2.5 hours just to see Jake Browning get destroyed on Monday Night Football on national TV. Is there any way we can get out of this? But, like Ticketmaster or whatever the rules were, we couldn't get out of it. We were committed. So I was like, all right, fine. I'll just, I know that I'm an overly cynical type of person a lot of times. So I had to tell myself, okay, maybe something good can happen. Maybe it's not all going to be worst case scenario. They're not going to play Jake Browning. Maybe somehow Joe Burrow will actually play in this game. And then there will be a chance of actually winning, and it will be some kind of a miracle. So I was holding out hope against hope that, okay, let's just go and see what happens, and maybe I can somehow find a way to enjoy myself, even if Jake Browning does play, but hopefully not. So I started to make my mental plan, get mentally prepared. Okay, I'm going to make the trip. Started looking up directions to the stadium, how to get in and out of the parking garage. Started looking up, just scouting out the area, seeing what you can and can't bring into the stadium. That was one of the interesting things of, you can't bring any kind of bags or not even like fanny packs. So I know phone theft and pickpocketing is a big problem at these type of events where you've got a huge mass of humanity all piled into the same area. It's easy for people to just kind of casually bump into other people and pickpocket their smartphones out of people's pockets. So I was kind of cautious about, maybe can I bring like some kind of zippered pack, but no packs, nothing like that. The only thing that I took with me besides my keys, wallet, phone, and I put those in pockets with zippers. So I put everything and made sure that I had a zipper on it if it was going to be a valuable, and I had to carry on my person. The only other thing I took in with me was a sealed bottle of water because I'm not paying for the prices of water. And I managed to successfully get in and out of Paycor Stadium without spending any money at all. Very proud of myself for that fact. They said it's a cashless stadium. Well, don't worry about it because I'm not spending any money in here anyway. But, they got the concession stands. I didn't see any lines for any of the concessions. It's pretty easy to get in. Not so easy to get out, though. That was my biggest complaint was when everybody went to get out, there was a very confined space of like one exit that everybody was trying to get out to. So if there was some kind of emergency, it didn't seem like people could easily get out. I don't understand the logic behind that. I understand restricting access on the way in, but on the way out, it seems kind of stupid to block everybody. Anyway, as I mentioned previously, this was going to be the white Bengal whiteout game where everyone was encouraged to wear white attire. And I don't really have that much white clothing. I'm more of a black and gray kind of guy. That's a lot easier to keep clean and not have stains on it. So white clothing isn't really my jam for the most part. So I was looking around, what do I have that's white? I had a white running hat that's got like reflective stuff on it from New Balance. So it's like a white hat, and I had a white undershirt, like a insulated undershirt. So that was white. And I had my white Ohio State jersey. And I have a black Bengals jersey, but I had a white Ohio State jersey. So it was like, do I wear the team jersey or I wear the team that everybody in Cincinnati probably dislikes, but it's white? For some reason, I went with the Ohio State jersey because it's white. Figured that would blend in somehow, but didn't really. I got a lot of comments from people who like either was saying like go Michigan, or some people said good game, or because Ohio State just beat Notre Dame. That's what I was figuring. I was like, hey, Ohio State beat Notre Dame a couple days before the game. Maybe people will have some goodwill, but no. Apparently, UC still sees Ohio State as their rivals now because they were in the playoff hunt a couple times. I mean, come on, UC, you're not Ohio State. Anyway, not a big deal. But maybe I should have just worn the black jersey, the Chase jersey. I got a Giovanni Bernard number 25 black jersey also. That may have blended in because we were at the upper deck. It's not like we were going to be on camera, anybody seeing us anyway. We were at the very tip top last row, or second to last row of the upper deck. But we were in the middle, like we were pretty much on the 40-yard line. So we had great, angle on the field. We were just really, really high up. But we get in the stadium, we get to our seats after climbing all the way up the ramps and all the stairs, and we're totally out of breath and like sweating by the time we get to our seats. We finally get there, sit down, and we're on the visitors side of the stadium, which faces west. So we could see it's on the east side and we're facing west. And at the time, the sun was still up. So the sun was, it's kind of in our eyes, but not that bad. And then we could see the sunset as players were warming up. The sun was setting, and then you can see the river is along the south side. So you can see the river where we were sitting was off to the left, and then the highway was off to the right. Beautiful night. The weather was about 75 and sunny, no clouds, not too humid or anything, and no call for rain. And even throughout the entire game, it stayed pretty warm. At the very end of the game, when it was like 11:30 at night, you felt maybe a slightly cool breeze, but even then it wasn't cold at all. I never felt a chill, totally warm. So this was perfect football weather. It wasn't like the sun was beating down on us, like cooking us out in the sun in the stands all day. So we had nice, dark, cool night, but still warm enough to be comfortable. Perfect night for football. This was not the first NFL game that I had attended, but it was one of the best in terms of overall production and performance throughout the game, because a lot of times when you go to a game, it's just going to be a standard regular season game where at halftime they're going to have some kind of performer like, monkey riding a dog, or some average school teacher kicking a field goal from 40 yards away for a chance to win a prize, or some just kind of amusement distraction type thing, just, while everybody's going to the bathroom or getting drinks or snacks or whatever. They're not really paying attention to what's going on. So just something to go on to have something to look at while the players are away. Maybe have a dance team come out, or if you see like NBA halftime shows, like the guy dressed up in a gorilla costume jumping on a trampoline and dunking the basketball, like all that kind of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the game. None of that was here at this Bengals game, because they had the Ring of Honor induction ceremony for halftime. Boomer Esiason came out and he got his striped Ring of Honor jacket from Ken Anderson, who was one of the other Hall of Fame, or should be in the Hall of Fame, but he's in the Bengals Ring of Honor as a quarterback from Augustana College. Ken Anderson. And then Chad Johnson was inducted into the Ring of Honor also, and he got his jacket from Willie Anderson, who was the right tackle. And I was thinking, because I saw Isaac Curtis there, Isaac Curtis was another wide receiver who also wore number 85, just like Chad Johnson did. So I thought maybe that could be a little bit of symbolism, one 85 giving the jacket to another 85. But it makes sense because Willie Anderson played on the same team with Chad Johnson and Carson Palmer and TJ and all those guys. So he knew Chad probably a little bit better than Isaac Curtis did. So it was cool to one teammate give the other teammate the jacket. And we saw a lot of teammates there to support their buddy. We saw, for Chad specifically, I recognized a few of them. T.O., Terrell Owens was there. He was a good friend of Chad. And I saw TJ Hushmanzada was there for sure. And then just the stadium experience itself, they've got a DJ who was playing music in pregame, which, is mostly contemporary, like electronic, dance, hip hop, maybe some techno or trance or whatever. But, some music from like the last 15 or 20 years. I felt like the DJ that the Bengals had before this DJ, so they switched DJs last season. Now it's DJ Primetime. I forget who the previous DJ was, but he was okay, but he would play like, it seemed like a lot more like classic rock. And, maybe that was the audience. I don't know. Maybe that's what thought the audience wanted to hear a lot, but it was just way too much classic rock and like old, just, it was kind of dated, the playlist the old DJ was playing. So now they got a new DJ. He's more with the times. He still plays like what you consider like some of the more classic hits from the 2000s. Like he was playing like Daft Punk and Lil Jon and Nelly and Darude and stuff like that. But, he's played Ski Yee. If you watch Hard Knocks for the Jets, that's that song Ski Yee. That's what everybody was dancing to on that one episode. I think it was the finale, and they played it. So watch out for Ski Yee. They played that in the pregame. Ski Yee. Bengals also have some pretty good-sized video replay boards on either end of the stadium, so north and west end. You can see the instant replays, and the person who was doing the replays did a pretty good job of getting the replays up onto the board quickly and zooming in and rolling forward and backwards so you could kind of see what was happening on the play. They did a pretty good job of showing that. And obviously they do it more for the Bengals plays, or plays that are going to be favorable for the Bengals, as opposed to showing replays of Aaron Donald sacking Joe Burrow and blowing past Cordell Volson. They put prompts on the screen to like cheer when it's third down, or get loud, scream, be loud, whatever, to try to get the fans pumped up, get a little more energy and excitement. For the most part, honestly the loudest thing in the stadium was the DJ and the music and the speakers and all that kind of stuff. The fans and the crowd noise itself wasn't the thing that's the loudest. Like I said, I was at the very top of the upper deck, so it's not like I can really hear all the people at the bottom of the lower bowl of the stadium cheering. All that sound is kind of directed onto the field more so than being reflected up into the upper deck. Maybe if I were lower down, it would have been louder. But for me, the loudest thing was just the speakers, which were like directly over my head. And then the sound from the speakers was reflecting off of the canopy, which is above the seat. There's a small canopy, and it basically reflects all the sound directly back at me. I was the only person in my area wearing earplugs, and my friend didn't wear any. He said that he didn't have any like ringing in his ears the next day, or any hearing loss or any problems like that. But we were, having to scream at each other, even though we were sitting right next to each other, because the music was so loud. So I guess it makes the experience seem more exciting, just because there's more lights, more sound, more stuff going on around you to make you feel excited, as opposed to if it were just completely empty, no music, and it was just relying on the sound of the game and the crowd noise entirely, it would be a little bit underwhelming. I get why they do it. It just it feels like a cheap trick to have the crowd noise just be mostly the DJ. But the thing about the DJ that was interesting to me that you don't get is when you watch on TV, like, so I talked about the opening kickoff. They play Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. And you hear that, and you hear the guitar riff, da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na, and then right as the kicker kicks the ball on television, it makes it sound like the music cuts out as the ball is in the air on the way to the receiving team. But in the stadium, I could actually tell that they cut the music out a lot quicker than that. They cut the music out before Evan McPherson, whoever's kicking it off, actually kicked the ball. Right before or as he's kicking it, it's kicked. But the thing is, the sound doesn't travel. I can hear it because I was so close to the speakers. I heard it almost instantaneously, but it takes another second or two for the sound to travel down to the field level where those television cameras and the television microphones are picking up the music. So it was interesting how, to me, the music cut off right when he kicked it. But when I went back and watched it on TV, the music cut off while the ball was already in the air. Just a small little detail that you get attending the game in person versus watching it live on TV. But it was just so weird that normally, music's still playing while the ball gets kicked. When you actually go and watch it, different timing. But the same way the sound doesn't carry from me down to the field, the sound didn't carry from the field up to me. So that was kind of the thing that I didn't get to experience, was hearing anything from the field in terms of big hits, pads, players running into each other. That's going to make a sound, but unfortunately none of that sound carried up to me. So I was just kind of watching a silent movie almost, of seeing the players way down on the field moving around, and I got pretty good vision, so I could kind of tell. I could still make out the numbers mostly to tell who was who. Okay, that looks like Charlie Jones out there. That looks like Uno, or that's T, or whatever. You could tell, but I couldn't hear anything. Couldn't hear like the players, what they're saying, any kind of audibles, anything like that. That aspect of the game was taken a little bit out of it by sitting so far away. If I was going to go back again, I probably will. Hopefully I will. But I would plan in advance a little bit so that we could get better seats. So we did it last second, kind of a spur of the moment thing, where most of the good seats were already taken. We just kind of had to settle for what was the best available, which was all the way at the top of the stadium. If we go back, hopefully maybe we can get a little bit closer to the front, at least to the front of the upper deck, so it wouldn't be quite as high. That's probably going to be as good as we're going to get. We're not going to be down in the 200 club level or anything like that. But my friend and I didn't drink at all. He doesn't drink. I was driving, so I wasn't going to drink. So we didn't do any kind of tailgating or partying or anything like that. Unfortunately, I don't have any crazy stories of debauchery and wildness that I can share with you. We didn't pick up any chicks and go have a night out in the town or anything like that. It's just a business trip only. We're going for the game, and that's it. So we got into the stadium, we got to our seats, and they were doing the warm-ups of the specialists, kickers and punters. It was interesting to me that Darren Simmons, the special teams coach, still does the kicks to the returners. Instead of having one of the punters punt to the returners, Darren Simmons punts the ball to the punt returners, because he used to be a punter in college, Darren Simmons. I think he went to school at Kansas, or he's from Kansas, but yeah, so he's like 50-something years old, he's got to be. He's out there punting. He's not booming them, but still, if I was his age, I'd be like worried about my hamstring going out making these punts. But he was punting them out there and getting some good spirals off, so that was cool to see. But obviously, the biggest thing, the moment everybody was waiting for, was the quarterback's coming out and Joe Burrow, whether or not he was going to be in uniform. And everyone breathed a huge sigh of relief. The announcer said, "Here comes your quarterback, Joe Burrow." And it's like, oh, yes, there he is. And so everybody whipped their phone out, including me, and I'm zooming in. Even though I'm so far away, I was like, as far as my phone can zoom in, I got to zoom in on Joe Burrow, see how he's looking out there. I got a little bit of video of him warming up, throwing some passes. He was just, standing still and throwing. But it's like, okay, you weren't sure whether or not he was going to play going into the game. It was undecided. They said it was a game time decision. They said that he was going to do a workout in the morning before the game started, just to test things out, make sure he was feeling ready to go that night. But then when the time came for him to come out in the field, I was like, okay, he's already in uniform, out in the field warming up. We've gone past the point of no return now. He's definitely playing. Like he's not going to go through all the steps of going and putting on his uniform and practicing throughout the week. Even though he didn't go as a full practice participant, he obviously got in enough practice to feel comfortable. So it's like, why go through all that practice if you're not going to play in the game? Why put on the pads if you're not going to play on the game? At this point, I was convinced. Like I said, even I'm the most cynical, skeptical guy out there. I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure he's going to play based on the fact that he's warming up. So that was good news right off the bat. It really, that made the night just that much better just from the start, because it was like, okay, no matter what happens from here on out, it's all gravy, because at least Joe Burrow is going to play. Like that's what I absolutely wanted, just more than anything. I wanted them to win the game, but I wanted to see Joe Burrow. I definitely did not want my first Bengals game to be Jake Browning's first start in the NFL. That would not have been ideal at all. So I was very ecstatic just in that moment of seeing Joe Burrow on the field warming up, just so I know that my long trip had not been in vain. And I was a little bit surprised, although it was a big crowd, it was a good crowd, it was an excited crowd, loud and everything. It wasn't a complete sellout. So where we were sitting in the visitor side of the upper deck, there was still a fair amount of empty seats around us. And, maybe like the last 5 or 10 rows of the upper deck. And when you went off to the sides, I'm sure there was more empty seats. So it looked like, in terms of people actually filling up the seats of the stadium, looked like maybe about 95, 96, 97% full. When I looked on ESPN later, it said 99% full. So basically a sellout, It wasn't, so the capacity, I think the record crowd for Paycor Stadium was 67,000 basically, and this was about 65,000. So maybe a couple thousand people short of the record. And it was a little bit surprising to me because this is such a big game, prime time, but maybe a lot of people were feeling like me where they weren't sure whether or not Joe Burrow was going to play. And even ESPN in their marketing leading up to the game, they were showing the pictures of the starting quarterbacks except Joe Burrow. They replaced him with Jamar Chase because ESPN wasn't even sure whether or not Joe Burrow was going to play in the game. So I feel like maybe a lot of people who were on the fence about going, who are in similar positions to me of, do I really want to make this 2.5, 3 hour drive to the stadium and watch Jake Browning play? So that's would be my explanation. Or maybe people just, it's a Monday night, they got to go to work next day. Maybe people can't take off, so it wasn't maybe as sold out as it normally would be. But if it had been like, a big game against a division rival, or if it had some kind of implications for the playoffs or the standings or something like that later in the season, it would have been probably a hotter ticket, harder item to get. But since it's still early in the year and the Bengals lost the first two, maybe that kind of dampened just a little bit of the excitement. But given the fact that this was the Bengals' Ring of Honor, it's on Monday Night Football, primetime, national television, everybody in the organization, including Joe Burrow, was highly aware of how important this was for the team, for the franchise, just to put on a good show for everyone. This is kind of their crown jewel. If they had any date circled on the calendar in terms of what is going to be, what do we want to focus on and put a lot of energy and resources into planning and making sure everything goes off without a hitch, this one is probably the marquee game that the Bengals as an organization had circled. They wanted to do this up big for, like I said, with Boomer Esiason, Chad Johnson, all the former players coming back. It's going to be on ESPN, national audience. They want this to seem like a big deal and show everyone, the country, the world, that the Cincinnati Bengals are a cool franchise that everyone should be interested in. So again, another reason why nobody wanted Jake Browning to play in this game. And luckily he didn't. But I mean, in a lot of ways, it's kind of an indictment on, I don't know who, like, I guess Duke Tobin and the player personnel department, based on the fact that they're saying Joe Burrow clearly injured, not 100%, maybe not even 90%. I don't even know if he's 80%. He's more, 75% if he's lucky. They're saying a debilitated, slowed Joe Burrow is still better. It still gives them a better chance to win than Jake Browning at 100%, which really does not give you a lot of confidence in Jake Browning, but makes you ask the question, then why is he even on the team? What are we doing? Like, what? Get somebody else. Get somebody who can play. What is the point of having a backup if they can't even come in and give you any snaps when the starter is injured? So we'll have to see. That would be insane if A.J. McCarron ends up the season as the backup quarterback or actually has to come in and take some snaps. Like, how crazy would that be, seeing A.J. McCarron back in a Bengals uniform? I think he's wearing number 4 at this point. So that would just be wild. But obviously, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope Joe Burrow somehow is able to find a way to come back to some form of health. He still is not 100%, even in this game. He didn't seem to have any major setbacks throughout the game. But I couldn't tell this when I was watching live, but when I watched the replay on ESPN, they showed him on the bench, and he has this kind of wrap that when he's on the sidelines, he has wrapping up his right calf, and it's got looks like a module that will vibrate and stimulate his calf. So he kind of wraps it up and has this massaging thing that lays against his calf when he's on the sideline. So maybe that's supposed to keep it warm, keep it loose, make sure it doesn't get tight or anything like that might risk more further injury. We'll have to see if he can keep this up all season long of kind of semi-rehabbing just enough to play each week. He's never going to be able to get a full rest. The bye week is coming up after the week 6 game, so he'll get a little bit of a longer rest early in the season, but it's still not going to be the type of rest he got during training camp where he took basically a whole month or 4 weeks completely off. It seemed like, I mean, we didn't see him. I'm sure he was training and doing workouts, so he didn't lose his cardiovascular ability, but he already had a significant time off, and we don't know if he suffered any re-aggravations to that in that moment. We're assuming he had 4 complete weeks of rest. Could have been marked by a couple of setbacks along the way that we just don't even know about. So it's going to be an ongoing process, an ongoing drama to watch throughout the year. One of the other cool things about the game day experience was on the Bengals app, they had this light up the jungle feature where if you download the Bengals app and sync it up with the in-game, I don't know what it was. I think they played like a sound or something to tell your phone to sync up, because you had to enable the microphone, enable the camera. So it must have played a tone to tell your phone to sync up. But basically it strobed the flashlight, the strobe flash on your phone in sync with everybody else. So it'd be on or flash or blink or whatever in tone. So they did like the player introductions. They were like, Bengals fans, get ready. Zach Taylor and your Cincinnati Bengals. And then they shoot off all the fireworks and everybody's phone is blinking, blah, 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 blah. And they're playing the, like trap music drops and going crazy. And it was just, a ton of excitement, lights, music, sound, all this energy everywhere. So it was just a really exciting thing, cool thing. I got some videos up on Twitter or X, so you can go check out Bengal Bites and see. I posted some pictures and I posted some video of the game, so you can check that out. If you've never been to a Bengals game, I would recommend it. I would recommend going early in the year, like I mentioned. Don't go like in January when it's going to be super cold because it's outside and you're going to be miserable. If it's going to be your first game, go early in the year. Hey, call me a fair weather fan, but that's literally what I am. I like the fair weather. I don't like that cold stuff. I'm like T. Higgins, I would recommend it for anybody. I mean, if you can get better seats, the better seats you can get, the more I would recommend it. You don't want to sit or I don't like sitting in the end zones. So if you can get closer to midfield, that's what I would recommend. And the thing, I mean, it wasn't as good in terms of getting commentary from, if you're watching on ESPN at home, you can see all the replays, you can see the announcers give their commentary and their thoughts and play-by-play. So you miss out on some of that extra context, a little bit of flavor that you would get if you were at home. But on the other side, the thing that was interesting was, since I could see the entire field, basically I'm watching the all 22 by being in the stadium, I can see all the players. It made it that much easier for me to see plays as they were developing. So I could see, that guy is about to be open. If Joe Burrow throws it there, it should be a good play. And then, he would see the same thing a half second later or whatever, throw it there. And you could just, as a fan, you can see plays develop a lot more easily than when you're at home. It's hard because you can only see, the lineman and the quarterback basically, but all the receivers downfield are out of your field of view. So you're just kind of assuming that they're running and getting open, and then you see when the quarterback throws the ball, that guy is standing there and he's open, but you're not able to really see what's going on most of the time. So being at the actual game, there were so many times it felt like where I would call it, or like a big defensive play like a sack was coming. I could tell, 3 steps away, he's about to sack Matt Stafford or whatever. That was interesting. I would say I wouldn't go to every single game. Even if I lived in Cincinnati and just had like all the money in the world and I can afford to pay for season tickets and go to all the games, I don't know if that would be my preferred way of consuming the game. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to watching them at home on TV already that that's kind of what I prefer. But I would definitely, I would go to them again, and I would go to maybe a few home games. But probably, like I said, weather gets cold, I'm definitely staying at home. I'll watch every game, but I don't know about going there in person. Unless somebody's got the luxury box. If you got the booth and it's heated, then hook me up. Give me the invite. If you got the extra spot in the booth and I can come along, I'll go with you to that game. But if I gotta stand outside, especially in the upper deck, and it's gonna be windy and stuff up there, no thank you. But speaking of all that stuff, follow me on Twitter, X, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, leave a rating, thumbs up, all that kind of stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how to promote this show, so I'm not planning on spending any money on promoting it as bad as Spotify and Twitter and Facebook want me to spend money on ads for this podcast. I'm going to try to grow it organically. So if you know anybody who likes Bengals podcasts and they don't like a bunch of BS and ads in their podcast, then tell them about this show and maybe we can grow it together. So let's get into our game recap. I did attend the game live and in person, but I also watched it back on the replay and the All-22 and the condensed versions on NFL Plus. So I got a little bit of both worlds. I got the in-person experience and I also got the live experience. So this game was a little bit ugly from the beginning and it got a little bit better for the Bengals as the game went on, but it was mostly a defensive battle. We had expected the Rams to put up a lot of yards and a lot of points as they had been doing all season, but the Bengals defense found a good game plan under Lou Anaroumo, figured out how to stop the Rams attack, and they were able to hold them in check for most of the night. And then on the other side, the Rams defense was surprisingly good, so I thought they were going to be a little bit down and give the Bengals an opportunity to get in gear, but that didn't really happen either. The Rams were good, but also a little bit of a down performance from Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and some of the offensive linemen that didn't really help out in terms of protection. So initially, especially, it was a defensive battle back and forth, just a lot of field goals. Not a lot of yards, especially for the Rams. They didn't even convert any third downs until the very end, last drive of the game. So the Rams were not able to put too many drives together, get too many yards. The Bengals made a little bit of a drive here and there, but a lot of time they were shooting themselves in the foot too. So it was a defensive matchup. For the white Bengal theme, the players are wearing the white helmet. So they usually have the orange tiger helmet with the orange base with black stripes. Now they've got white base with black stripes, and they're also wearing their white jerseys, black pants. Most of the players had white gloves and white shoes. A couple guys had some orange shoes, but most of everything was white. But the difference was previously they had their color rush uniforms, which were, the jerseys were just black and white with no orange. And when they wore those with white helmets, there was like no orange in the uniform whatsoever. This year they changed it up, so their uniforms are their just standard white away, which has orange Bengals across the chest plate, and then the numbers have an orange outline going around them. It gives it a little bit more orange accents to give it just a little bit more flavor. I think it looks a lot better than the previous white Bengal uniforms that they had. So the fans are mostly wearing white. It's not 100%, but let's say probably 90% of the fans are wearing some kind of white attire in the stands or in the lower bowl area, especially where like the higher price seats, fans, more hardcore fans maybe are sitting. They're going to be all more keyed into the white stuff. And then it was almost like the Bengals organization has been listening to my podcast. So I don't know, what's up, Mike Brown, if you're listening to this, shout out to you. But as soon as we walked through the entranceway, we were handed a free white towel that had Ring of Honor ceremony. It had all the Ring of Honor people who were going in Monday Night Football Rams. So kind of like a commemorate. It's just a polyester cheap towel that you could wave during the game, on third down or whatever, make some noise. everybody's already wearing white and then they're waving these white towels to kind of make it look like the Steelers' terrible towels type of atmosphere, crazy, raucous crowd making a lot of noise, intimidating the opponents and getting that home field advantage or whatever. So that's what I talked about on the podcast in episode 10 preview show, where I said, if they had some kind of something to wave, streamers, towels, whatever, just visually to make it the fans more apparent on television, especially. It looks better when you see all these fans waving stuff. It just makes it more obvious. People are having fun, I guess. Outside of Joe Burrow's injury that we had been tracking all week, one of the other injuries that popped up late was Irv Smith Jr., the tight end, with his hamstring. And he was doubtful going into the game. He ended up not playing in this game, not even suiting up. So they brought Tanner Hudson up from the practice squad. They elevated him. I forgot to mention him in the last episode. I know we had Drew Sample and Mitch Wilcox, number 89 and number 84, who are the standard backup tight ends behind Irv Smith. But then they brought up Tanner Hudson, number 87, and he had been catching everything in preseason. He caught from Jake Browning and Trevor Siemian, but he was catching multiple passes, getting flipped on his head and getting concussed. But he's back, he's healthy, he's ready to go. I mean, we've seen Drew Sample for 4 or 5 seasons now. We know what Drew Sample is. This is 5th season because they drafted him in 2019 as a second round pick. And Drew Sample has never been a dynamic receiving option. Adequate, yes. He's a good blocker is what his primary strength is. So Tanner Hudson, since they're going to go mostly 3 and 4 wide, they need a good receiving option for this type of offense they're running right now. Drew Sample is more of a running base, and they have not really decided to commit to the run very much. The other inactives were Trenton Irwin, who had been active the previous 2 games, but I don't think, like I said, he hadn't even got a target at all. So we didn't really need Trenton Irwin out there that much. Chris Evans continued to be out. He had a hamstring. We don't know if he's just still dealing with that or what. Jackson Carman and Trey Hill, as long as DJ Ivy and Jay Tufele are out. Jackson Carman has been inactive for every game so far this season. I believe Trey Hill has also been inactive, but Jackson Carman, he's the 2nd round pick from a couple years ago. The fact that he's been inactive every game is definitely lets you know what they think of him. They've had Cody Ford, number 61, active on game day instead of those 2. Now into this game itself. Bengals won the opening kickoff, and earlier in the week, some reporter had asked him, "Hey, Zach, last year you were 0-2. In Game 3, you won the kick and decided to receive the opening kickoff. Normally, the Bengals, if they win the opening coin toss, will decide to defer to the second half and take the ball in the second half, meaning they'll kick off in the first half and go on defense first." It doesn't... You can argue, philosophically, which one is better than which. It doesn't really make any difference. But in this particular game, Zach Taylor, they called him out on it. He's so predictable that the reporters knew what he was going to do in this game. Or maybe he listened to the reporters. I don't know. But that's exactly what they did. They won the coin toss and decided to receive the opening kickoff instead of defer to the second half, which they normally don't do. Bengals get the ball first because every kickoff, except for one in this game, was a touchback. The Bengals didn't have any opportunity. They had Travion Williams back there to return all the kicks instead of Chris Evans. They had Travion, but Travion did not get any opportunity to return any kickoffs in this game. Everything was a touchback. So Bengals took over initially from the 25. Got Joe Burrow out there. First play, Drew Sample got the start at tight end, but then Drew Sample was quickly replaced on most of the passing downs by Tanner Hudson, number 87. Tanner Hudson was way better receiving option. He's already proven that so far. But in all the previous games, the Bengals have gotten off to very slow starts, mostly 3 and outs, multiple times to start the game. So since Joe Burrow is playing, we know that's good. We're looking at him to see how he's moving, but then we're also looking at the offense as a whole since they're getting the ball first and saying, okay, let's get some first downs, make some progress down the field, get something of a substantial drive going to start the game off right. And these are scripted plays for the most part, so they should be well designed and in theory should be able to have success. And as we had been seeing all year, Bengals run almost exclusively out of shotgun. Zach Taylor, I think, mentioned in the post-game press conference later that he was kind of thinking of ways to be creative about what can you do when your quarterback can't go under center. So he's saying that Joe is probably never going to be underneath center while his calf is still having this issue. So some of the things that they normally would do, they have to change and adapt to do it in a different way because he's got to go out of shotgun and catch the snap, 4 or 5 yards from behind the center. On the opening drive, Bengals come out and start with 3 passes. First one's incomplete, but then the next 2 go complete to Tyler Boyd out of the slot. He picks up 9 on his first catch and then picks up 12 yards for a first down on 3rd and 1. Joe Mixon had a short run for 4 yards on first down. Then from midfield, 50-yard line, I saw number 15, Charlie Jones, run out onto the field along with number 87, Tanner Hudson. He was already out there. And I was telling my friend, oh, look, Charlie Jones is getting out there for an offensive play. On this play, this was basically a designed play for Charlie Jones. It was, like I said, these plays are scripted in advance. So this was like the Charlie Jones play for this week. He lined up on the right wing. So he was close to the line of scrimmage, but off the line of scrimmage. When they snapped the ball, he came behind the offensive line to the left. So he went out to the left flat. It's kind of like the new way of running a shallow route over the middle. So as a receiver, instead of running forward and into the defense, you can, in some ways, avoid the defenders by running behind your own offensive line, giving up space, going into negative territory. And by doing so, you can kind of get free, get open to the other side. So Charlie Jones runs the under route behind his offensive line to the left flat, catches it for a good pickup and first down. But I was glad to see them getting Charlie Jones involved in the offense in some way. Get these young guys some action. They haven't really been used at all the first 2 games. And they're tough divisional opponents, and you want to break them in slowly. But, like I mentioned, we've got to save the top 3 receivers' legs a little bit and not have them play, 95+%, or they're just going to be exhausted by the time the fourth quarter comes around. The first pass that went to Jamar Chase was incomplete. He had an opportunity to catch it, but he dropped it, and he was close to getting hit by the inside linebacker. So it may have been one of those situations where he kind of felt the footsteps a little bit, and the inside linebacker was talking trash to him, but Jamar Chase wasn't hearing any trash talk. Jamar Chase was the one who's going to be doing all the trash talk today. But this drive was kind of ugly. Joe Mixon had a decent run for about 5 or 6 yards, brought up 3rd and 3, and then Tanner Hudson was out there. He was running a slant from the slot, and he's got good hands, but maybe his feet aren't the quickest because Turf Monster got him, and he tripped on the turf and fell on his face. So the ball was going to him. If he could have stayed up, he would have caught it and had a first down, but luckily it wasn't intercepted. Like, the guy who was defending him luckily didn't jump out and catch the pass that was about to go to Tanner Hudson while he was on the ground. But since they couldn't convert that 3rd and 3 to Tanner Hudson, they had to settle for a long 56-yard field goal, which was wide left. Bengals' opening drive lasted 9 plays, 37 yards for 3.5 minutes, but it still came up empty, 0 points, still 0-0 as the Rams take over. So after the Bengals drive ends in 0 points, Rams take over at their own 46, and Matthew Stafford's first pass down the middle for 12 yards to Tyler Higbee. Then they go running play on first down for 6 yards. Another pass play to Puka Nacua, number 17 for the Rams, for 12 yards, and another first down. So the Rams are just 2 first downs after 3 plays. Then they get the ball on the Cincinnati 24-yard line. They do a end around to Tutu Atwell, number 5 for the Rams. He takes it around the right side, up the right sideline. Nobody seemingly gets enough of him to get him out of bounds. The referee says that he goes all the way up 24 yards, untouched, for a touchdown. And that would be a 4-play drive after the Bengals spent 9 plays driving it and missed the field goal. Rams come out, march down the field in 4 plays and score a touchdown. as a fan, I'm sitting there stunned, like, oh man, what is going on? Like, we can't score any points. We look horrible. Chase and Tanner Hudson's tripping over his own feet. Jamar Chase is dropping passes. Rams are coming out here and scoring 4 touchdowns. Like, there's a Rams fan, right next to me, and they're going crazy. I'm like, oh my God, what? Like, this can't be what's happening right now. But the review comes out. They're like, oh, previous play under review. They go back and look. They say his right foot stepped out at the 4-yard line. Touchdown called back. Reversed. Rams still have a ball, 1st and goal, at the 4-yard line. Actually, at the 2-yard line. 1st and goal at the Cincinnati 2-yard line, they say. So this is a huge play on 1st and goal. Matt Stafford goes back to pass, and he ends up getting sacked from up the middle by DJ Reader. And that's quite unusual because DJ Reader, although he's good for his run stopping, isn't known necessarily as a pass rusher and doesn't get a ton of sacks, even though he attracts a lot of attention and kind of eats up a lot of other offensive linemen. He isn't necessarily known for his pass rush moves, but in this case, gets a huge sack for 9 yards. That takes the Rams back to the Cincinnati 11, so it's 1st and goal from the 11 instead of the 2. The defender on that play was Nick Scott. He was the one who was supposed to get over and be the last one to knock Tutu Atwell out of bounds, and he was late getting over. So he was lucky that they called Tutu Atwell out of bounds because he hit the pylon with the ball, and his foot was barely out of bounds at the 2. So that could have been a touchdown, and that was a huge swing in this game. So that's a 4-point swing. After the sack, Rams end up having a couple incomplete passes to Kyren Williams, number 23, their running back, and they end up settling for a field goal. So instead of 7 points on the touchdown, they have to get 3 points. So that's a 4-point swing in favor of the Bengals, which is huge because the Bengals ended up winning this game by 3 points. So that extra 4th point is all the difference. And, fans are like grumbling up in the stands of like, oh, field goal, whatever. It's like, you have to think of perspective and think of what could happen down the road. Okay, yeah, they gave up 3 points, but it was a lot better than giving up 7 points in that moment. When the Bengals take over for their second drive, they run a couple plays, get to 3rd and 1 at their own 34. Then they have 2 consecutive false start penalties. One on Joe Mixon where he just kind of leaned forward for no reason in the backfield and got a false start. And then the other one was on Orlando Brown Jr., the left tackle, number 75. He got a false start for jumping. So instead of having 3rd and 1, they had 3rd and 11. And they're playing at home where I can tell you the crowd was being very quiet when the Bengals had the ball. So it wasn't like crowd noise was being an issue where they were having some kind of communication problem. The only thing that I could maybe think of is that since Joe Burrow was out of practice and they had to have Jake Browning, maybe they just kind of got used to Jake Browning's voice and his cadence, and maybe they were just a little bit out of sync with Joe Burrow initially and not used to his voice and cadence and whatever. But there's really no excuse for 2 false start penalties when you have 3rd and 1, taking it to 3rd and 11. They ended up getting only a few yards back. It got to 4th and 7. Brad Robbins had to punt, which he got off a 47-yard punt, ending in a fair catch, so no return. Rams took over from their own 26 with about 6 minutes left to go in the first quarter. They had one good pass to Puka Nacua over the middle where he caught it one-handed and got about 9 yards, 8 yards. And then they had another incomplete pass to their running back, Kyren Williams, which was at that point the 3rd incomplete pass to Kyren Williams in a row. He's just not on the same page. Matthew Stafford, the quarterback for the Rams, isn't really on the same page with his running back. So their incomplete pass, they end up having to punt on 4th and 1. Ethan Evans, the Rams punter, gets a 41-yard punt off. Charlie Jones gets a nice return for 7 yards. Bengals get the ball with 4:22 left to go in the first quarter at their own 21. Joe Burrow completes his first pass to Tanner Hudson. So that's Tanner Hudson's first catch, I believe, of his professional career. And then Joe Mixon takes a short run, 3rd and 4, Joe Burrow throws a pass on a quick out to Jamar Chase in the left flat. But this ball gets tipped at the line of scrimmage, and it looks very dangerous. These are the type of balls that can easily be intercepted by the defense. But somehow, fortunately, it was the Bengals night. Everything just came up Bengals tonight, and it falls right into Jamar Chase's hands. So the tip just like perfectly landed. It almost hit him in stride, and so he caught it and got the first down. On this drive, we saw the Bengals move Jamar Chase all over to different parts of the field. He was catching passes on the left, then he caught a pass out of the slot over the middle of the field, then he caught a pass to the right, out of the far right side. So they were moving him to every part of the defense. And that was the other thing. He hadn't played much slot. Tyler Boyd was typically the Bengals' main slot receiver, but they've tried to get Jamar Chase in those matchups with a nickel cornerback instead of the outside cornerback. So putting guys into motion so that Jamar Chase ends up being the slot receiver and the defense has to react as if he's the slot guy. So that's one of the other things the Bengals haven't really done too much, is working Jamar Chase out of the slot, see what he can do. But he showed his versatility in this game because he was making amazing catches on the outside, specifically on quick outs or deep outs. I mean, he was running outs of all types, 5 yards, 10 yards, 20 yards out. Cornerbacks have to respect Jamar Chase's speed, and he's so smooth when he runs those routes that he can get to the outside and basically just be sitting on the sidelines wide open waiting for Joe Burrow to hit him with the ball. The last play of the first quarter was 2nd-and-3 at the Rams 45. Joe Mixon off left guard for 7 yards. He broke a couple tackles on this play, got a first down. So again, Joe Mixon is running hard, running aggressively. The only thing about Joe Mixon is sometimes he doesn't have great vision all the time. It's hit or miss with Joe Mixon. Sometimes he has great vision. Sometimes he just runs straight into the back of his offensive lineman or runs straight into where the defenders are instead of where the hole is. To start the second quarter, Bengals had 1st-and-10 at the Rams 38. Joe Burrow completed a short pass to Mitch Wilcox. Then they had a penalty on the Rams for holding on T. Higgins, so they got a new set of downs. They got a first down. Incomplete pass. A couple plays later, they had 3rd-and-6, the Rams 26. They had a third false start penalty of the first half. This time it came on Tyler Boyd, number 83. So not the same person at least, but 3 different people on the offense committing false start penalties, really hampering their chances of scoring points on these drives. They ended up getting another incomplete pass on 3rd-and-11, had to settle for another field goal. This time it was good from Evan McPherson from 49 yards out. Not quite 50, but Money Mac still coming through on those long field goals. So that ties the game at 3-3 with about 13 minutes left to go in the second quarter. Now, when the Rams take over on their third drive, they come out scary again. Matthew Stafford is hitting passes every play for first downs. He's hitting Puka Nacua to the right for a first down. He hit Tyler Higbee, number 89, their tight end, for a 15-yard pass over the middle. He hit a pass deep left on Tutu Atwell, number 5, ran a deep over. Behind all the linebackers, he ran behind Jermaine Pratt and away from Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton, I guess, was trying to guard him, but Mike Hilton is not nearly fast enough to guard Tutu Atwell all the way across the field. So Mike Hilton was kind of trailing way behind, and he ran behind Jermaine Pratt in front of Dax Hill, the safety, and Matthew Stafford just threw it. He knew that Jermaine Pratt was going to turn his back the wrong direction somehow, because Jermaine Pratt is reacting to the guy coming from his left who's running to his right. He turned the wrong way, and the ball basically went right behind Jermaine Pratt's head and into Tutu Atwell's hands, and they picked up a 37-yard gain. Rams had the ball at the Cincinnati 12 after 3 plays. It was looking like it was going to be an easy touchdown perhaps, but Bengals defense again was able to right the ship, bow up, as Zach Taylor says, whatever that means. Rams had a chance at the touchdown. They had Tutu Atwell open in the back of the end zone. He had position on Mike Hilton out of the slot, but he just wasn't able to catch the pass, went off his hands. So Rams settled for a short field goal. they took the lead 6-3 with about 10 minutes left to go in the second quarter. At this point, it's kind of a good news, bad news situation where the Rams are able to move the ball well down the field, but they're not putting it in end zone, scoring touchdowns. Bengals get the ball after the Rams field goal. Joe Mixon gets stuffed on a run up the middle, and then there's an incomplete pass to T. Higgins over the middle, so Bengals have 3rd and 10 from their own 25. Jamar Chase runs a out route from the boundary on the left side, so he's one-on-one against a cornerback on the left-hand side. He runs an out where the cornerback is playing a man-to-man, kind of close. He doesn't do like press, bump, and run where he tries to put his hands on Jamar Chase, but he's close to him, and then at the snap, he jumps to the inside. I couldn't tell if that was just a reaction to Jamar Chase's release off the ball, or if that, it seemed like that was kind of the way he was playing the defense, was trying to take away the quick inside release so that he was playing him from inside out and then more of a trail technique. But Jamar Chase runs such quick, precise out routes. He's one of the best out route runners in the game because he's so powerful. If you look at his legs, he's got huge calf muscles. So he's able to just break and cut on a dime, and these out routes, nobody's able to keep up with him. And he does a good job of dragging his feet. Joe Burrow puts the ball exactly where it needs to be, right along the sideline at the right distance. And then Jamar Chase does his job of running an excellent route, and then at the end of the route, finishing it and finishing the catch by dragging both of his feet before he gets out of bounds. So he gets both feet down in bounds to complete the catch for the first down to keep the drive alive. After the first down from Jamar Chase, number 1, we see another pass to T. Higgins that goes incomplete. So they're trying to get the ball to T. Higgins, but this one gets broken up by Kendricks. Previously on this drive, the pass got broken up over the middle to T. Higgins, and he was looking for a flag, but he hasn't been able to secure these catches yet. Then on 2nd and 10, they had been able to do a good job of keeping Aaron Donald, number 99 for the Rams, away from Joe Burrow. But on this play, Aaron Donald explodes, and he does a quick spin move he does a quick swim move on Cordell Volson, the Bengals left guard, number 67, where Aaron Donald lines up at what they call 3 technique, which basically means on the outside shoulder or the left shoulder of the left guard, in this case, Cordell Volson. So he's not over the center. He's lined up in between the left guard and the left tackle, but more lined up over the left guard. Anyway, he steps upfield to his right and to Cordell Volson's outside shoulder, then cuts back to the inside. He splits the difference because it's supposed to be a double team, essentially. It's supposed to be Cordell Volson and Ted Karras, the center, double teaming Aaron Donald. But he's too quick and powerful for both of them. He goes right down the middle of their double team. It looks like, they slow him down a little bit, but he sacks Joe Burrow with an 8-yard loss. And it's like, how can this guy? That's why he's in the hall. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, is because you got 2 guys who their only job is to prevent this one guy from touching the quarterback, and they're not able to do it on this play. So Aaron Donald becomes Aaron Donald. And it's hard to say. All of a sudden, it was like he figured out what the weakness of Cordell Volson was, because first quarter, we didn't really hear too much. Then at this point, it was all of a sudden the Aaron Donald show when the Bengals had the ball. And the only thing that the Bengals could do was just wait until Aaron Donald was taking a break and had to go off to the sidelines to get somebody else in. It's hard to say, is Cordell Volson really this bad, or was Aaron Donald really this good? We know Aaron Donald has been all-pro every single year he's been in the league, so he's maybe just this good, and Cordell Volson will have to just, take this one on the chin and say this guy is just better than me, but he'll bounce back, I'm sure. He may have to just say, all right, this is Aaron Donald, he's a Hall of Famer, I have to just accept my limitations and move on with it. But there are a lot of plays where I'm sure Cordell Volson is going to be having nightmares of Aaron Donald for weeks and months to come. After the sack, the Bengals were not able to pick up the first down, so they had to punt. Brad Robbins has to punt. He gets off a terrible shank of a punt off the side of his leg, goes off to the right. It only goes about 33 yards and then goes out of bounds. Not the type of punt the Bengals were looking for. Not the type of punt Brad Robbins had been looking for either. Like I mentioned, he was lowest in the league in average punting distance, and 33 yards and out of bounds is not going to help on the average. He ended up having, I think, a 42-yard average. So he had a 46-yarder, 33-yarder. He had a couple in the low 40s, but still not booming them. And this, again, was a beautiful weather night. There was no inclement weather to deal with, nothing, no slippery, wet balls, rain, wind, anything like that. Perfect conditions for punting. He still was kind of suspect. But still, on all of Brad's punts, no returns. They all end in out of bounds or a fair catch. So at least he's not giving up huge return yardage. Rams get the ball back with about 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. Second down, Dax Hill shoots up from he's playing close up to the line. He's only about 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, but he sees Kyron Williams on the pitch, and immediately he just comes up to play the run. He doesn't have to play any kind of pass coverage or anything, and he gets a good jump on it, 3-yard loss, and he looks real quick. That kind of stifles the Rams drive. They're not able to pick it up. They only get 7 yards on 3rd and 9, so they end up having to punt again. 45-yard punt that goes out of bounds at the Bengals 11. Bengals complete a pass over the middle to Jamar Chase out of the slot again, and he does a spin move to break out of the first tackle, pick up a few extra yards for 13 total yards, and that's actually the longest catch of Jamar Chase's 2023 season up to that point, which sounds kind of ridiculous when you think about it, but yeah, that's true. Bengals have not been going deep at all or even attempting deep passes, and definitely the ones that they tried weren't working. They were 0 going into this game. So 13 yards is a big play for Jamar Chase and the Bengals offense. Unfortunately, on 1st and 10, Joe Burrow is looking for T. Higgins on the deep end to the right side, and it's right in his chest, and he just drops it. So there have been a few passes. This was the one that was the first one where you could say it was definitely in his hands and he should have caught it. There were some that went incomplete to T, where he just wasn't able to catch it, and you were thinking, okay, the defender was right there getting a hand in it, so maybe the defender just made a good play and broke up the pass, and T wasn't able to grab it. But you would think, T is such a tall, long player. He's got such long arms. He should be able to reach out and grab it in front of the defender most cases. And so far in this game, he hadn't been able to. This one, he actually dropped it. Bengals had another incomplete pass to Tyler Boyd on 2nd down. Then on 3rd and 10, they tried a deep pass to Jamar Chase on the left sideline, and he was open. He had the defender beat. He had a step on him, but Joe Burrow just missed the pass and threw it too far to the left, out of bounds. Again, if you throw passes 5 yards out of bounds, you have zero chance of completing them. And obviously that's not where he wanted to throw it, but it's kind of a wasted play if your intention was to try to complete the pass. I mean, it's safe in the fact that it's not going to be intercepted by anybody, but you also give your offense zero chance to catch it and make anything positive into it. So it's pretty much a wasted play, basically like just throwing it into the dirt. Rams get the ball at their own 30 with about 3:45 left to go in the first half. They are leading 6-3. First play, Matthew Stafford gets pressured immediately off the left edge from Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson beats the left tackle inside. Normally, Trey Hendrickson does the speed rush move to the outside, but for whatever reason on this play, Trey Hendrickson shoots to the inside, gets a free release basically. Maybe the tackle was cheating, and Trey Hendrickson knew that this guy was going to cheat to the outside. I don't know how, but he came in immediately, had Matt Stafford running to his left. Then Dax Hill came in from his free safety spot. Dax Hill came in immediately to fill and try to sack Matt Stafford when Trey Hendrickson, I don't know if he was spying Matt Stafford or why he wasn't back in coverage as a safety, but he was maybe on kind of a delayed blitz. I don't know what was going on, but Stafford was able to get the pass away before Dax Hill sacked him. But because of this, he kind of threw like a weird sidearm pass, and it got intercepted by Logan Wilson, who just jumped in front of the receiver and made a great interception. It got sent to instant replay because there was some debate about whether or not this touched the grass before he could catch it, but they confirmed the call on the field as an interception, and the Bengals got the ball. When the Bengals got the ball, there was about 3 minutes left to go in the second quarter. Pretty much the biggest play of this drive was they tried to pass to the deep right to T. Higgins, and he caught it, except there was a flag on the play. It looked like T, even from where I was sitting, it looked like he extended his arms out and pushed off on the guy. And that was true. It was offensive pass interference on T. So his night is kind of not turning out that well. He's dropping passes, getting passes broken up. Then the one pass he does catch for a big gain gets called back for offensive pass interference. The next play, they try to go deep to T again, but this is incomplete. This is more of a miss by Burrow. He doesn't maybe put enough air under it, and we can see Joe Burrow's reaction after he throws it. He's frustrated with himself that he felt like he should have had that pass. So it's a frustrating first half with all these false start penalties and drop passes and missed throws uncharacteristically by Joe Burrow. There was another pass where then on 3rd and 18, Ja'Marr Chase was actually running a good route. He ran an 18-yard out route. It's just the pass from Joe Burrow was not accurate. It was way out of bounds and too high, so they couldn't convert. They had to punt. Rams took over from their 8. They had a 9-yard run on 1st and 10 and another pass for 4 yards to Puka Nacua, number 17, on 2nd and 1 to pick up a first down. Another incomplete pass. Then on 2nd and 10, Matt Stafford does not see Dax Hill, number 23, Bengals safety, blitzing off of the Bengals left edge. He comes in completely untouched. The Bengals were showing a heavy blitz, more than the Rams had that could block them. And for whatever reason, Matthew Stafford didn't call any kind of an audible or call anybody else in to help to block. So there's too many guys for the Rams to block that were showing blitzing. And then Logan Wilson, he was kind of a fake blitzer. He wasn't actually blitzing. So at the snap, he backed off. So the running back who was kind of designated to block Logan Wilson should have been blocking Dax Hill. He doesn't get over there in time. Lets Matt Stafford just get completely annihilated. He barely has time to see it coming and just holds onto the ball, not fumble. Or Dax Hill just come in faster than I've ever seen any other Bengals safety. We never saw Jesse Bates or Von Bell making any kind of sack plays in the backfield this quickly. So there's the tackle for a loss we saw on the previous drive, and then this sack by Dax Hill. He's making huge plays in the first half. Charlie Jones picks up about 9 yards on the punt return, takes it to the Bengals 40. So they have 1:13 seconds left to go in the second quarter. First play, 1st and 10, Joe Burrow completes a pass to the right sideline to Ja'Marr Chase. So it's another quick out to Ja'Marr Chase. He doesn't quite get the first down. He picks up 9 yards, but it's a good, safe, easy 9-yard pickup. You're going to take that all day. If you can pick up 9 yards every play down the field, you'll take it. And we see Ja'Marr Chase after the catch. He's kind of talking some trash to Ahkello Witherspoon, the cornerback, saying, "Hey, why don't you get up and guard me closer? Stop playing so soft away from me." Because he's giving up a big cushion because he's afraid of Ja'Marr Chase's speed. He doesn't want to get beat deep. So Ja'Marr Chase is kind of baiting him, saying, "Hey, come on, why don't you guard me closer? Stop giving me these easy 9-yard catches." So he's kind of, playing mind games with him, trying to goad him into playing up close so then he can beat him over the top. He's hoping, because he wants to score a deep touchdowns. He would prefer to score touchdowns over these 9-yard outs, but he'll take him if he has to. And on 2nd and 1, we see Tanner Hudson catch a pass up the seam on the inside right. So he finds a soft spot in the Rams zone and picks up 26 yards and another first down. So that's the longest catch of Tanner Hudson's career, second in this game. And that's, Drew Sample, Irv Smith, Mitch Wilcox. I don't think any of those guys have had a 26-yard catch at this season, for sure. Definitely not. Tanner Hudson is already proving himself worthy of the snaps that he's getting in his first game. We'll have to see how Tanner Hudson's season develops, see if he can continue to build on the success he had in this first game. Bengals get the ball first and 10 at the Rams 25. Things are looking pretty good. They throw an incomplete pass. Rams call timeout. But then, second and 10, the Bengals offensive line just got kind of beat on a stunt. Aaron Donald and the interior defensive lineman, Byron Young, they just completely collapsed the pocket around Joe Burrow. He has no chance to escape. He's just swallowed up basically by the Rams defensive line for the sack and an 8-yard loss. And that keeps the clock running, and it makes the field goal harder for Evan McPherson. It definitely takes them out of opportunity to realistically score a touchdown on the drive. And we're hoping with the amount of time they had left, they still had about a minute left to go when they caught the pass at the Rams 25. They didn't even get an opportunity to take the lead. They had to settle for a tying field goal, which Evan McPherson made, a 53-yarder. So that's great. Feel better than getting no points. Going in tied at halftime is better than being down. But, the fans are still booing because they're fans. They have to boo everything. They were booing the fact that the Bengals let the clock run down to 3 seconds before kicking the field goal instead of like throwing a Hail Mary or whatever. But it's like, if you take another sack, then you're definitely out of field goal range. So you can't take another sack. They just, take the points and go into halftime. Like I said, halftime was the Ring of Honor induction ceremony for Boomer and Chad. And when you see these, or when you hear about these things, you're thinking, oh, that's going to be like the majority of the halftime show. But actually, the Boomer and Chad thing only lasted about 2 minutes, realistically, of the 12 or 15-minute halftime period. So it was 2 minutes of them, and they didn't like have any kind of a stage or anything. It was very low production value. Like, they just walked them out onto the field and was like, all right, you guys stand here on the field and put the jackets on them. They gave them the jackets, and then they looked up at where they unveiled their numbers and their names going up around the stadium on the wall. So they'll be, enshrined and cemented in Bengals history up on the stadium with their names up there. But, there was no other really pomp and circumstance. They didn't make any speeches or acceptance speech or anything like that. It was pretty much just like, get out there, wave to the crowd, put the jacket on, and then get out, because they still had more sponsored ads to sell. Marissa Contepelli got up on the stage and gave like the recap of the first half, sponsored by whoever, and they did some other segments of, here's the fan cam of putting on Snapchat filters on people's faces or whatever. So they still had all that type of typical stuff. It wasn't purely just Boomer and Chad for the entire halftime like you might expect if you're a naive fan like me. Rams get the ball first to open up the second half, and they move pretty well again down the field. They have a long pass to Higbee over the middle, and then a long screen pass to Kyron Williams on the left side that picks up another first down, 20 yards. So already the Rams are down to the Cincinnati 38. And then when it looks like Trey Hendrickson has a sack off the left edge of Matthew Stafford, there's a penalty on Sam Hubbard for a face mask that ends up negating the sack and puts the ball at the Bengals' 21-yard line. First and 10, Kyron Williams runs up the middle and gets about 4 yards before he gets tackled on a hard hit by Chidobe Awuzie. But Cheeto kind of looks like he the one took a little bit more of the worst for wear on this one. He's still kind of dazed and sits down, and he had to come off and get replaced by DJ Turner, the rookie, number 20. So Cheeto, number 22, our starting cornerback, he has to run off, and he eventually goes into the blue medical tent for observation. They take him back into the locker room later. So they were looking at him. I'm assuming it was for checking him out for a concussion, because he looked like he went close to helmet or had a strong hit to his head. He looked like he was kind of maybe a little bit woozy. So Chidobe Awuzie was a little bit woozy on this play. And we'll have to watch that. Hopefully he doesn't go into concussion protocol this week. I would think not, because Cheeto was actually able to come back into the game later and continue playing. So you would think the Bengals doctors, they would have checked him out, and hopefully if they gave him the thumbs up, it's not one of those Tua situations from last year where the doctors say, you're all good, go back in there, and then a couple days later they find out he had a concussion. Next play, Rams have 2nd and 6. They They try to throw another pass to their running back, Kyron Williams, and this again goes incomplete. This time, the pass is good, but he just drops it and it pops up in the air. It almost gets intercepted by Jermaine Pratt, the Bengals linebacker, number 57, but he's not able to catch the pass. And then the Bengals cornerback, number 29, Cam Taylor-Britt, he comes in to break up the pass, not really make the interception, just to kind of make a tackle or basically stick his head in there. That's literally what he does. He makes helmet-to-helmet contact with Kyron Williams. I would not be surprised if Cam Taylor-Britt gets a fine later for this hit because he just makes helmet-to-helmet contact. That's the type of hit that the league does not necessarily want to see players making on each other because that's how either player could have likely got a concussion on this play, and that's just not what we want to see in the game. Cam Taylor-Britt has made a lot of aggressive type plays like that. We see him making a lot of shoulder tackles and going into guys. He also has a tendency to grab receivers if he gets beat. Instead of moving his feet, he'll grab them with his hands. So he gets a lot of defensive holding penalties and pass interference penalties. We'll have to see how his play goes through the year, what kind of plays he's able to make. So Rams have 3rd and 6 here at the Bengals 17, and they call a pass. It looks like Tyler Higbee has a walk-in touchdown to the right sideline, but Bengals actually called timeout before the snap, and they showed the replay. Zach Taylor was looking down his sideline. He saw, it looked like one of the assistant coaches, I think it was the Bengals linebacker coach, James Betcher, was trying to yell something to Logan Wilson, who was he's the kind of the captain of the defense out there. He was yelling something. I couldn't really make out what he was yelling. You couldn't read his lips well enough, but he was yelling something. There was some kind of miscommunication, obviously, that they wanted to get into something different on defense. And Zach Taylor saw this. I don't know if he heard something over the headset, but he comes running down and calls timeout right before the Rams get this play off. So it could have been a touchdown for the Rams. Tyler Higbee was obviously disappointed he couldn't catch a touchdown. So instead of scoring the touchdown, Bengals get the timeout. Next play, 3rd and 6, Matt Stafford gets sacked around the left edge by Trey Hendrickson, number 91. Trey Hendrickson just had one sack called back by a penalty on Sam Hubbard. This time he beats this, I think it's a backup left tackle. So number 77 for the Rams, Alaric Jackson, 3rd-year player out of Iowa. He went out of the game at some point, and then they had their backup come in, Zach Thomas, number 57, 2nd-year player out of San Diego State. And once he came in, Trey Hendrickson started getting easy pass rush lanes to Matthew Stafford. He was getting sacks left and right. The penalty didn't wipe out this play. Trey Hendrickson sack counted. Rams had to settle for another field goal, so they went up 9-6. That was a 7-play, 51-yard drive that took 4.5 minutes off the clock. But again, the 3rd field goal for the Rams, so they have not been able to score a touchdown. And that's the 2nd touchdown opportunity that wiped out by a sack. In the 1st quarter, DJ Reader had the sack when the Rams had 1st and goal. They pushed them back into a field goal. Then in the 3rd quarter, Trey Hendrickson has this sack where it looked like the Rams had a touchdown. Bengals actually called timeout. The actual play, Trey Hendrickson gets a sack to force another field goal. So Bengals defense in the red zone is coming up huge to prevent touchdowns and hold the Rams to field goals only. The other thing about some of these hits and sacks is even though some of these sacks are being wiped out by penalty, Matthew Stafford's body is still absorbing this physical abuse and this punishment. So it's like, oh, great, it's not a sack, but it sure felt like a sack to me. And, Matthew Stafford's not as young as he used to be. He's in his mid-30s. So these type of sacks and hits on him are starting to pile up. You want to get the quarterback a little bit nervous back there. So he's been really lighting the Bengals up when he's had an opportunity to just take his time and sit and survey the pocket, survey who's open, throw a good pass. But now the Bengals are trying to turn up the heat a little bit, get some hits on him to make him kind of rattle a little bit. Bengals take over with about 10.5 minutes left to go in the 3rd quarter. And Joe Mixon busts off his biggest run of the night for 13 yards off left tackle. Good way to start off the drive. However, in the next 1st and 10, Cordell Volson gets pushed all the way into the backfield. It's a running play for Joe Mixon where it's a very similar play that they just ran to the same left side. But this time, Aaron Donald is having none of that. It looks like Aaron Donald is the one blocking Cordell Volson, honestly, because Cordell Volson gets pushed 2 yards backwards into the backfield, and it looked like Aaron Donald basically pushed Cordell Volson into Joe Mixon. Like he used Cordell Volson as a battering ram and just hit him and just hit Joe Mixon with Cordell Volson, basically. So Cordell Volson was just along for the ride in this scenario. I felt bad for him in this play, but he's been doing pretty well this season, but he still has trouble with these kind of real powerful guys. He can get pancaked. It's not good when you see your offensive lineman getting reverse pancaked by the defensive lineman. So he's going to have to, Dave Lapham in the Trenches podcast is telling me how Cordell Volson in the offseason is looking strong as an ox, and he put on 10 pounds of solid muscle. He's just out to grant this guy, Cordell Volson. Okay, well, that is all well and good, but he's still getting destroyed by people on the defensive line. So he needs to maybe, reorganize back in the offseason, get maybe 20 pounds of muscle next season. That'll come in handy. Whatever it is, he needs to get the muscles to work so that they are stronger than the other guys and that he's able to withstand him. He just kind of like, he doesn't get a good strong base. He just shuffles his feet and he has too wide of a stance and he's just standing upright, just ready to be pushed over. But after that, Bengals pick up a nice 16-yard gain on an out from Ja'Marr Chase where he was lined up as the second slot receiver. So they had 3 receivers to the right side. T. Higgins was the farthest split out. Then they had Tyler Boyd, number 83, as the second receiver. And then inside of both of them, they had Ja'Marr Chase, number 1. So the 2 outside guys ran deep routes. Ja'Marr Chase came in behind them on the out behind them. So he had plenty of space to that right side. Nobody there to break up the pass. Joe Burrow had a nice, easy spot to throw to for a big pickup. A couple plays later, Joe Burrow gets hurried again by Aaron Donald up the middle, where pretty similar to earlier in the first half, he is supposed to be double teamed by Cordell Volson and Ted Karras, and it's like he just splits through both of them like they're not even there, runs straight at Joe Burrow, and he doesn't get sacked. Joe Burrow doesn't. He's able to get the ball away quick enough so that it's incomplete to the left to Travion Williams. But still, it's like, man, how is Aaron Donald getting past both of you guys this fast? This is a little bit concerning. Especially concerning for Joe Burrow's health, because he was down and it looked like in a little bit of pain and discomfort, you'd say. And I don't blame him by getting hit by Aaron Donald as hard as possible. That will definitely cause some pain and discomfort in your extremities and torso and every part of your body. But 3rd and 10, Joe Burrow again goes back to his man, Ja'Marr Chase. Out of the slot again, it's a shallow slant or maybe a glance route or whatever you want to call it. It's skinny post, but he's going up the field and to the inside, and Joe Burrow puts it in the perfect position where the linebacker is trying to come over from the middle and break up the pass. So Joe Burrow puts it on Ja'Marr Chase's back shoulder. It's not a back shoulder fade. He's just running a slant, and the ball position is on Ja'Marr Chase's back shoulder so that he has to go back to catch it where it's not going to get him hit and the defender is not able to break up the pass. So this is a huge pickup to keep this drive going. It's about a 14 or 15 yard gain. And just watching this catch specifically, about 8 minutes left to go in the third quarter, 3rd and 10, if you want to go back and watch it. Ja'Marr Chase, it just illustrates what makes him so special and separates him and his skill above what you consider normal, run-of-the-mill, everyday receivers. Most receivers, this is not a catch. It's in their vicinity. Maybe they get a hand on it, and they think, oh, man, wouldn't it have been nice if I would have caught that? But no, Ja'Marr Chase makes this catch, and he makes it look easy. It's scary how easy he makes it look because he just contorts his body and his arms back behind him. While he's still like running in stride, he's able to keep everything moving and flowing and just make the catch with both hands, get down, doesn't bobble it at all, just snags it out of the air. It's pretty remarkable the way how easily he makes this catch look, because it's an extremely 10 out of 10 difficult catch. A little bit later on this drive, 7 minutes left to go in the third quarter, we see T. Higgins catch a pass on a short 5-yard dig route or 5-yard in route where he's the outside receiver to the right. He runs up about 5 yards, breaks it in, catches, and gets about 10 more yards of yak or yards after catch. So it's about a 15-yard gain total, another first down for T. Bengals are driving. Bengals eventually cap off this drive with a 14-yard run, weaving in and out by Joe Mixon. He goes to the left tackle, sees some daylight to the open field, breaks it off to the right, scores the touchdown untouched. So that's the thing that's kind of boom or bust about Joe Mixon. Sometimes he'll just seem like he has no vision and run straight into the back of some guy. Other times he has great vision like this play and he can score a touchdown. So you got to take the good and the bad with Joe Mixon. Hopefully not too much bad. So with 5.5 minutes left to go in the third quarter, and Bengals are up 13-9. That's their first lead of this game, and I think it's the first lead of the season because they never led at any point in the first 2 games. They had only been tied in this game. So 5.5 minutes left to go in the third quarter of the third game is when the Bengals finally have the lead in a game. Sweet. And at this point, it's funny because it's like, Zach Taylor doesn't know what to do with a lead. He's always trying to come from behind. So the philosophy and the psychology of the whole game suddenly flipped around on its head. How do we play with the lead? And you could really tell they got ultra conservative as soon as they got a lead, which is weird. The Rams take over, and again, like so many drives before in this game, the Rams have it dialed up, like the first couple plays of amazing passes. So the 1st and 10, Rams get it. They complete a 46-yard pass down the deep middle to Van Jefferson. He beat Nick Scott out of the slot, just a deep over, kind of a deep post. Matt Stafford had plenty of time. Trey Hendrickson was pressuring him, but Matt Stafford was able to step up in the pocket and get around him, get the pass off before anybody got to him. So it's a huge pickup. Takes the ball down to the Cincinnati 30-yard line in one play. However, on that 1st and 10, the pass to Puka Nacua is tipped at the line of scrimmage by Mike Hilton, and it's another interception by Logan Wilson. The sheriff from Wyoming gets his second interception, and the Bengals did some kind of choreographed dance. It was led by Chidobe Awuzie. So that's how you know maybe his concussion wasn't that bad, or maybe it was worse than we thought. But he was out there leading the dance, and it was like a choreographed dance. I don't know what you call it. Maybe if you know the name of the dance they were doing, please write in and tell me. But it looked pretty cool. Nobody seemed to know the name of it. They were just going with the flow. It looked good. Bengals, they finally get some touchdowns and some big plays. They can do some dancing, something to celebrate. And the fans were loving it, obviously. Bengals take over at their own 22 with about 5 minutes left. They get incomplete pass to T. Higgins. They get a first down off a defensive holding penalty on Tanner Hudson. So obviously the Rams are scared of Tanner Hudson now. They got to hold him. And then next play, 1st and 10, it's an audible. So Chase Brown is on the field for some reason. They took out Travion. They took out Joe Mixon. They put in Chase Brown for whatever reason. Maybe this is another similar thing where it's like they had the Charlie Jones play in the first half. Maybe this was the Chase Brown play. Joe Burrow comes up to the line and he says he does an audible to cancel out of whatever the initial play call was and to go back to their second play call. So when you see Joe Burrow tap his helmet and say can, basically means cancel whatever play was first called and run the backup play. So the backup play, instead of, it was supposed to be a run play, it ended up being a pass play. And it was a fake pitch to the left where Joe Burrow caught the snap, turned to his left, fake like he was going to pitch it, and then just turned his body away from the line of scrimmage, facing away from the line of scrimmage, so that the ball, was obstructed. His body was obstructing the ball. The defensive end, kind of like a dog, when you trick out the dog when you're playing catch, or you throw the ball but you don't actually throw it. That's what Joe Burrow did to this defensive end. He faked like he was going to pitch it, like, here you go, defensive end, ha! And then just kept it in his pocket and turned around the other way, found Ja'Marr Chase wide open in the right hole. He was in front of the safety, behind the cornerback. The defense kind of played up on that run play action, got a 43-yard gain, the biggest pass play, biggest explosive play of the season by far. Joe Burrow, he still wasn't rolling out like full speed. Like, it was lucky that he had this kind of deception, because if the defensive end had not bitten on the run fake, Joe Burrow would have taken a huge hit and taken a big sack. So it was fortunate. It was a good job by the Bengals pulling off this fake run and executing this pass to perfection. Hopefully we can see some more plays like that, but you don't want to risk Joe Burrow making that type of naked rollout where he's not able to protect himself. But you got to take risks in this game. No risk it, no biscuit, as Bruce Arians likes to say. And this was another one of those plays that I could see developing from my seat above, much better than you can see it on television. On television, Ja'Marr Chase just appears out of nowhere like he's wide open. When I was watching it live in person, I could see the play happening. I could see where the defense was. I could see, okay, it's a fake. Ja'Marr Chase is here. There's nobody around him. I started screaming, yes, throw it. And he did, and it worked out. Later in the drive, there's another pass to T. Higgins over the middle of the field that he just straight up drops. It hits him right in the hands, and he drops it. So that's 2 drops for sure, on top of the other questionable drops. So you could have counted him, he should have caught a lot more passes, basically. I think he had 8 targets and only 2 catches. Very underwhelming performance again from T. Higgins. He had a good game in the second game, and he needs to consistently, make receptions when he's getting these targets. The first game he had 8 targets, 0 catches. This game, 2 catches on 8 targets. We need better production from T. Higgins. Bengals have to settle for a 48-yard field goal from Evan McPherson, number 2. And he makes it, and he banks it in off the right upright. I didn't even realize that it hit in, because not that I could have heard it anyway, but to me, maybe I just didn't see it deflect, but to me it looked like it just went straight through. But apparently it went off the right upright, or I wasn't paying attention. But that gives the Bengals a 7-point lead, so the score is Cincinnati 16, Los Angeles 9. Rams take over at their 25 with about 3 minutes left to go in the third quarter. They run a running play for about 7 yards by Kyron Williams, but the Rams' right tackle, number 70, Joe Noteboom, gets injured on this play. Now, he had been questionable coming into this game with a deep bruise to his shoulder, and it looked like maybe he was favoring that shoulder as he went off the field. So he was out of the game. His backup came in, number 72, Tremaine Ankrum Jr. And on one of the first plays that he was in on, it looked like the Rams had picked up the first down on a 3rd and long, but he got called for a face mask penalty where he was trying to pass block DJ Reader, Bengals number 98, and he got his hands up around the face and ended up getting his hand caught inside of DJ Reader's helmet, basically. So that's, if you grab not only the face mask, but the helmet opening or anything in the helmet where you're twisting and able to grab the helmet to get leverage on it, basically, they're going to call that a face mask or a personal foul penalty. So that wiped out the Rams' first down. They ended up having to punt. Right before the end of the third quarter, the announcers say that T. Higgins has to go to the locker room, and we see Andre Iosivas out there. Apparently, T. Higgins had some kind of cramps. Maybe he got an IV in between the third and fourth quarter to get rehydrated. So nothing too serious for T. Higgins. He was back out on the field. We saw Joe Mixon do some hard running again on this drive. Got a first down. It was 2nd and 6. He got an 8-yard run up the middle, breaking tackles. And then later in the drive, we saw 3rd and 9 at the Cincinnati 41. Tyler Boyd caught a pass out of the flat where it was kind of a rub play that we talked about where Tanner Hudson, number 87, he was lined up inside of Tyler Boyd, and he ran a little bit out into Tyler Boyd's defender, basically, and Tyler Boyd came behind him. They did a switch route, and so Tanner Hudson basically picked or did a rub interference on Tyler Boyd's man. So he was able to get free, pick up the first down by breaking a couple tackles and just falling forward in a way where he was still getting hit, but moving forward and able to get just enough to get the first down and keep the drive moving. And the important thing is the Bengals are up by 7. Like I said, if they have any kind of a lead, all of a sudden they're going into this conservative mode where they want to shorten the game by letting the clock continue to run. They think, hey, if we've got the lead, then we want the clock running to effectively shorten the game so that we can win faster. We saw Drew Sample make a tough catch and pick up about 8 or 9 yards. He was breaking a couple tackles, so better than Drew Sample normally does, honestly. I was impressed that he was able to get, more than the typical 2 yards. So he almost got the first down, not quite. That brought up a 4th and 1. Bengals went for it and got it with Joe Mixon doing a quick jump cut. He got the ball, did a jump cut to the left, and just dove forward so he could get the first down. Got, that 1 yard, all that he needed to keep the drive going. But then the next play on 1st and 10, it looks like the Bengals are driving, getting ready to score again. Joe Burrow tries to throw a kind of a deep in route to Tyler Boyd, and Ahhhh Witherspoon is playing a trail technique on the outside of Tyler Boyd. He's able to get his hand in from behind and basically one hand intercept the ball before Tyler Boyd can catch it. So the ball was maybe a little bit too far behind, not necessarily behind Tyler Boyd, but it should have been further out in front of him, more away from that defender, so that the Rams player didn't even have a chance to get any hands on it at all. But this is a pretty crazy interception, the way the Rams guy just came diving in from out of nowhere and one hand grabbed it in front of Tyler Boyd. So, good play by him, but you want to see a little bit better ball placement by Joe Burrow so it doesn't get intercepted like that. I will say on this play, at the end of it, for as bad as Cordell Volson was at his pass blocking on Aaron Donald, he makes a great open field tackle on Witherspoon to prevent him from returning it any further. So I don't know if we want to put maybe Cordell Volson on the punt coverage team. Let's get Cordell Volson as a gunner out there, see what he can do. He came flying out of nowhere, just made a great form tackle on this guy. So, Cordell Volson, he gets the job done. He takes care of the dirty work out there. I like that about Cordell Volson. So that Bengals drive was 10 plays, 35 yards, took 5 minutes off the clock, but ended in an interception and no points. They still have a 7-point lead, though. Rams take over at their own 20 with about 10 minutes left to go in the game. First pass is incomplete. 2nd and 10, Matt Stafford is sacked for 8 yards by Trey Hendrickson. Again, Trey Hendrickson is just going right around this backup left tackle. Next play, Matt Stafford gets sacked by B.J. Hill, where he's got to scramble around, and it looks like he's almost escaped and threw the ball to one of the Rams players to get a big, I think it was Kyron Williams, to get a first down. But they say Matthew Stafford's knee was down before he was able to throw the pass. So he's down by contact. B.J. Hill gets credit for the sack on that. So that's 2 sacks in a row by the Bengals. First by Hendrickson, then by Hill. So that is a 3 and out for the Rams. They have to punt on 4th and 26 at their own 4-yard line. On this, Ethan Evans gets off a 55-yard punt to the Bengals' 41-yard line, but Charlie Jones catches it and returns it for 19 yards all the way to the Rams' 40-yard line. So the Bengals take over with great field position and about 9 minutes left to go in the game, up by 7. Unfortunately, Bengals aren't able to do too much with the ball. When they get it, they only get 5 yards on the drive and have to settle for a 54-yard field goal from Evan McPherson. Again, he makes the field goal, so Bengals go up by 10 points. Now we're starting to feel good. Okay, we got 10-point lead, 7 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. It's not guaranteed. We've seen lots of crazier things happen. We saw the Packers come back from a 17-point deficit against the Saints, so we know that the game's not over yet, but we're starting to feel pretty good. It's like, hey, the defense is forcing turnovers, getting sacks almost every play. Offense is at least not turning the ball over too much, although we just did have an interception. So, but at least they're getting some field goals, getting some points. We're feeling pretty good as fans. As fans, we're feeling ourselves. We're getting a lot of high fives going on in the stands at that point. It's a little bit annoying. Some people are going overboard with the high fives. It's like, 2nd down, sack, guy wants a high five from me. It's like, okay, dude, like we can't be doing high five every single play here. Maybe like, if it's a 4th down or we get a touchdown or something, but like 2nd down high five? Really? Is that where we're at? After the Bengals field goal to go up by 10, Rams take over with 7 minutes left to go in the game. They throw an incomplete pass deep left to Tutu Atwell, kind of testing the rookie DJ Turner. But as fast as Tutu Atwell is, we know DJ Turner's got that speed, so it seems like he's able to keep pace and stay right in his hip. He doesn't have any separation off DJ Turner. Ball falls incomplete. Then it looks like the Bengals get another sack on Matthew Stafford for 10 yards by Wilson and Hendrickson. However, there are offsetting penalties on the play. Rams had a holding penalty. Bengals had a illegal use of hands penalty by Cam Taylor-Britt, number 29, their cornerback. So the sack does not count. And if I'm counting correctly, that's at least 3 sacks that Trey Hendrickson had wiped out by penalties in this game. And he had 2 that did count. So he would have had 5 sacks in this game if there weren't 3 penalties. Trey Hendrickson had an insane game. He was unstoppable in this game. I think he had like 23% win rate on his pass rushes, which means like basically like 1 out of every 4 times he was in rushing the passer, he was beating his guy. So it's no surprise that if you're going to throw a lot, you're going to get sacked a lot by Trey Hendrickson. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is the Rams opted to punt the ball with 6 minutes left to go, down by 10 points. So they're going to need at least 2 possessions, 2 scores to tie or even win the game. And it's kind of a similar situation to what the Bengals did against the Ravens, where they were down by 10 late in the game, punted it, they scored the touchdown, but it didn't matter because they didn't have enough time to score a second time. Similar thing happened to the Rams here. It's like, okay, they punted it down 10, not that much time left. Even if they scored, they didn't have enough time to score it twice. So it was kind of like maybe that's where Zach Taylor got this train of thinking with Sean McVay, like they're copying each other, punting at the end of the game to not win. It's at this point that the Bengals get like way too conservative and they just do like these very basic runs up the middle that lose yards. Somehow they got a delay of game penalty, so they move themselves back 5 yards. They don't come anywhere close to moving the ball or getting a first down or anything. They just basically wasted 2.5 minutes off of the clock, which, I mean, that's the end objective. But you would have they could have won the game outright and not even give the Rams a chance to come back if they just got a first down or 2 and keep the clock running so that the Rams at least use up all their timeouts, don't have any timeouts left to do anything with. So the crowd was definitely booing this whole decision this whole time. It's like, you can't please anybody. You can't please everybody all the time. So even though the Bengals were winning by 10 points and there's only 5 minutes left to go or 4 minutes left to go, people are still like, boo, boo, score touchdowns every play, boo, So what can you do? Bengals end up punting, and it's a 41-yard punt by Brad Robbins. Fair catch again. So it's like, all right, it's good that there's no return. We don't want the Rams like running it back for a touchdown off of the punt. So that part is good. We like the hang time aspect of Brad Robbins, but 41 yards still leaves the Rams too close. They only have to go 61 yards because they catch it at, the 40 basically. So they don't have to go that far to score. It would be nice if we could get them pushed back a little bit further and make it a little tougher. So Rams take over. There's a little bit less than 4 minutes left to go. They complete a couple passes. They start to drive the ball. It gets to 4th down and 3. And the Bengals are playing just kind of a prevent soft defense. Just keep everything in front of them. They don't want to give up any plays behind them, easy touchdowns over the top. Just keep everything safe in front of you so you can tackle and keep the clock rolling. Matt Stafford is able to buy enough time where he can scramble, the rare Matthew Stafford scramble on 4th and 3, gets just enough to slide and get the first down. At that point, the Bengals were not playing with all their defensive linemen. They were just rushing 3 defensive linemen and had mostly defensive backs. They're in more of their dime coverage package where most of the defensive backs were on the field. Right before the 2-minute warning, we see Sam Hubbard, Bengals captain, number 94, come in and get a sack, also up the middle. So that's the 6th official sack of Matthew Stafford, not including the ones that didn't count because of penalties. So we've got DJ Reader, Dax Hill, BJ Hill, Trey Hendrickson, and then Sam Hubbard. 5 different Bengals players recorded sacks in this game. Trey Hendrickson had 2, at least. But then right after the 2-minute warning timeout, Rams complete a long pass for Puka Nacua. It goes 37 yards down to the Bengals' 3-yard line. Matt Stafford, again, he kind of breaks out of the Bengals' pass rush, so they're feeling like they're going to sack him every play. He gets out this time, scrambles out, throws it on the run behind Chidobe Awuzie and the safety. I think Nick Scott wasn't able to get over in time. Maybe it was Dax Hill wasn't able to get up and break up the pass. But that's the kind of throw that you don't see Joe Burrow making these days. He's not able to flick the ball and throw it with the velocity that Matthew Stafford is. Matt Stafford has always had that kind of just innate arm talent, arm strength, where it doesn't matter if he's got his feet necessarily under him all the way. He feels kind of like a Brett Favre. He feels like he's the kind of gunslinger guy who can go out there and throw it all over the schoolyard. And that's what he does with the Bengals on this play. It's just Puka Nacua is wide open in the right corner. Almost scores a touchdown, but the Rams end up getting into the end zone with a Tutu Atwell pass to the short left. Looked like just kind of a miscommunication by the Bengals. Rams went into motion, and the Bengals didn't pick up who was supposed to guard who. Cam Taylor-Britt didn't come over fast enough, and he was looking at somebody else like, oh, it was your fault. Everybody wants to blame somebody else when they're on TV, and it looks like it's their fault. So obviously he was looking at somebody else like it was their fault. But Rams scored a touchdown, so it brought the game back to a 3-point game, 16-19. Still Bengals leading with a minute and a half left to go. The thing about this for the Rams was they weren't able to score fast enough. Like we talked about, by the time the Rams scored a touchdown, there was only a minute left to go in the game. And their only option at that point was to try an onside kick and try to recover an onside kick and get it back without the Bengals getting the ball on offense again, because they didn't have time to stop the Bengals if they got the ball. The only opportunity to win the game was to recover the onside kick. They didn't end up doing that. Bengals recovered the onside kick. Then all they had to do was kneel and run the clock out and win the game. So that's what I meant by the Rams. If in hindsight, they probably didn't want the game to come down to whether or not they could recover the onside kick, because onside kicks are extremely rare. There have not been any that have been recovered so far this season. A very low percentage play. So you would think that since it was 4th and 5, going back in time, that Rams 4th and 5 on their own 30, I think it was, with about 6.5 minutes left to go in the game. In that scenario, do you say, do we trust our offense to convert on 4th and 5, or do we trust our team to recover an onside kick? Neither one is an especially high percentage play, but I think most people would say 4th and 5 is going to be more likely than onside kick in that scenario. Anyway, either way, it all worked out for the Bengals. We could all breathe a great sigh of relief as the clock ticked down to zeros. All the Bengals fans were going crazy. Not that many people left early. Everybody pretty much stayed through the whole game up until that last minute where Bengals recovered the onside kick. Then you saw most people heading for the exits because the game was pretty much well decided by that point. For the most part, it looked like Burrow had come through the game without any re-aggravation or re-inflammation of that injury. But there was one sequence late in the game, I think it was in the 4th quarter, where Burrow, he got pressured while he was in the pocket. He was trying to throw. He had to roll out to his left. And he had to not quite jump like he did the last week, but he had to step out of pressure, roll out to his left. And he made he mentioned this in the post-game interview, that they asked him what is different about his game now that he has this kind of limited mobility. He said that he was quicker to throw the ball away when he was rolling out of the pocket. And that was definitely the case in this situation. He knew that he wasn't really going to be able to outrun anybody, so he just kind of flipped the ball away to the sidelines. The thing was, when he did this, you could see him grimacing, and he didn't look exactly comfortable. He was all the way on the Rams sideline, and it was third down that was incomplete, so it was bringing up a fourth down field goal. It took Joe Burrow an extended amount of time to kind of gather himself, and he started walking very slowly, not necessarily limping, but kind of that very deliberate, making sure everything's okay, feeling it out, slow and steady. And then it took him until about midfield before he even started to jog. It was just this walk and then like a slow trot. So everybody in the stadium at that point was just kind of a low murmur. It wasn't a boo and it wasn't a cheer. It was a noise. It was kind of a, oh, like, oh, what is that? What's wrong with Joe Burrow? Oh no, concern, you know. But after the game, Joe Burrow said that everything was good. He didn't re-injure it, and he said he was expecting to have a better week. He expected to be able to participate in practice this week, unlike last week where he had to sit out most of it. So hopefully that's a good sign that we can maybe, if he's able to get through practice, he would be a little bit sharper in some of his passes, if that was the reason. When we were watching later on ESPN, Dan Orlovsky was attributing some of Joe Burrow's inaccurate passes to the fact that he wasn't able to practice and get those reps in practice and be as comfortable with running the plays and have that muscle memory to know what the plays are going to look like. You could say it was partially some of that. I would guess the other part is also the fact that he's physically having to compensate for that calf injury and calf strain. And even if it's subconscious, at a subconscious level, his body is going to compensate for that strained calf, even if he's not trying to. Like I said, the game went as good as I could have hoped for. Everything that I hoped for in the previous podcast for the preview episode about what could happen in this game did. We got Andre Iosivas some snaps in there. We saw Charlie Jones making plays. Joe Burrow came up big in the big spots when we needed to, and he stayed healthy. Jamar Chase went crazy. He had 12 catches for 141 yards. No touchdowns, but he tied his own personal record for most catches in a game, and that's one shy of the franchise record, which is held by Carl Pickens of 13. After the game, all eyes were on Joe Burrow, of course. He said that, they were asking him what was going into his mind in terms of whether or not to play in the game and balancing the long-term risks with short-term results of playing in the game. And Joe Burrow said that, yeah, those were all the things that he had considered in his mind. And yes, there was a risk of re-injury by going out and playing in the game, but by not playing in the game, that also risked going 0-3. And he said he wanted to be out there for his teammates, to support his guys, and he prided himself on his availability being one of his best qualities, and he wanted to be available for the teammates, and he knew that 0-3 kind of saps a lot of the morale of the team. 0-3, you don't want to be 1-3 either, so they can't just go and lose the next game and act like everything's all good. But it kind of just, when you hear that 0 for, just 0 for anything, 0 for 3, 0 for 4, 0 for whatever it is, they kept saying, we got that monkey off our back now. So they got the monkey off the back. Now they won a game. Now they got to win multiple games, string 2 in a row of wins instead of 2 losses in a row. That's what they talk about. We'll see. It's going to be a short week. Only 6 days to recover until they play again on Sunday. Going into the game, I was thinking it could maybe be a high-scoring matchup, 2 high-powered offenses. The Rams were leading the league in yards, or close to the top of the league in yards, outside of the Dolphins, of course. And the Bengals hadn't done too much on offense at all, whereas the defense was a little bit stronger. From a team perspective, some of the stats that jump out, the teams were relatively close in terms of yards, although the Bengals ran 18 more plays than the Rams did. So in terms of yards per play, Rams were outgaining the Bengals 5.6 to 4.2 yards per play. Bengals had a little bit more passing, Rams did a little bit more rushing, but neither team was really that effective at running the ball. Although now that I look at it, it's more because the Rams just didn't run very often. The Rams only had 13 rushing attempts to the Bengals' 23, but they had about 70 yards. So Rams had about 5.5 yards per carry. Bengals only had 2.3 yards per rush. Not very good. You want that to be closer to 4 yards per rush because they were getting 4.7 yards per pass play, 2.9 yards per rushing play. Not very effective. Bengals had a lot of penalties relatively. They had 7 penalties for 49 yards, and those 3 false start penalties, which is uncharacteristic of the Bengals. Got to clean those up. We also saw some defensive holding penalties and face masks and stuff like that. Turnover battle, Bengals won 2-1. Like we said, Logan Wilson had those 2 interceptions, and Joe Burrow just had the 1 interception to Witherspoon that was really an incredible play by him. The other big stat that jumps out is the third down efficiency. Rams were 1 for 11 on third down, and the only first down that they converted was late in the fourth quarter. They started off 0 for 10 on third down. So good job by the Bengals defense getting off the field, forcing punts and field goals out of the Rams on 3rd and long. Individually, I mentioned Chase had the 12 catches for 141, Long of 43 on 15 targets. So 12 catches on 15 targets, pretty efficient. Tyler Boyd had 5 catches on 9 targets for 39 yards. Okay day. He had some big, tough catches over the middle to pick up first down. Tanner Hudson, 2 catches, 30 yards, Long of 26. So he's showing some promise. Only 2 catches, not anything to get super excited about, but better than Irv Smith, honestly. The other tight ends got involved. Drew Sample, Mitch Wilcox, they had a couple catches. Even Charlie Jones had one. But tonight really wasn't about the offense as much as it was about the Bengals' defense. Defense came to play, especially Dax Hill. Dax Hill led the team in tackles. He had 8 total, 7 solo. He had 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and another, quarterback hit counts as a sack. But Dax Hill was all over the place, and he was showing amazing speed, popping off the screen, lightning speed, that if he keeps making plays like that, who knows? He could be a Pro Bowler if he keeps making plays like that. I don't want to jinx it, but he was looking really, really good all over the field, making good plays. Sam Hubbard had 6 tackles. Cam Taylor-Britt, 6 tackles. I mentioned the sacks. They had a total of 6 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. The Bengals gave up 6 hits and 2 sacks, so relatively better performance. And when you consider all the hits Matthew Stafford was taking that were not even counted by penalties, he took way more than 10 hits. So Matthew Stafford was definitely hitting the ice bath after all the hits he was taking. Mike Hilton, he didn't make too many tackles, but he did have a key pass deflection that led to the interception. So that was a big play by him, getting his hand up in the throwing lanes. Special teams wise, Brad Robbins, 5 punts for an average of 42.2, 1 inside the 20, Long of 46. So he's consistently not getting any return yards, but like I said, Long of 46 with 5 punts. Pretty short. On the other end of the spectrum, Charlie Jones. He's coming on now that he's getting more experience. I don't know what it was with Charlie Jones in the preseason. Maybe he just was kind of adapting to the speed of the games in the NFL. Maybe he was just adapting to the NFL. But this game he had 4 returns for 45 yards, average of 11.3, and a long of 19. So getting closer to that 10, 11 yard per return average, that's more what we want to see out of Charlie Jones. So hopefully he continues to produce there. As the game ended, I was kind of, looking around at the fans in the area. When the game is going on, you're all just kind of focused on the game, not really worrying about who's around you. And then afterward, you kind of look around and see, here's all these people I was being a maniac around. And so this guy I was high-fiving half of the game turns around and he's like, oh man, I'm so glad they won. And so glad that Joe Burrow played because I was just worried all week. I had to drive from 3 hours away, and is Joe Burrow going to play? So, this guy I'd never even met in my life is having the same exact experience that I was basically the entire week, where we were both in a state of anxiety, wondering, oh God, am I going to go and not be able to see Joe Burrow play in this game? So for both of our sake, and I think a lot of people in the stadium, we all felt a huge feeling of relief, not just joy from winning the game, but relief and a feeling of relaxation, and can just breathe a little bit deeper, a little bit easier. Now it's like, okay, everything's back to normal. We got the quarterback back. He's winning games for us. Everything seems like it's back on track. Like DJ Reader was saying when he was going in to the locker room after the game, he kept saying, back on track, back on track. So that's where the Bengals are. We're back on track now. Nothing can stop this team as long as Joe Burrow's calf stays healthy. Apparently, he's been getting some resources or some advice from Aaron Rodgers about calf injuries, and Aaron Rodgers was giving him compliments. We saw a lot of people give Joe Burrow compliments after this game, even though he played not his best game. It was, in terms of like passer rating and QBR and all that kind of stuff, it was one of his worst games actually, because he only barely over 50% passing, no touchdowns, one interception, 240 or some yards. Not a huge amount of yards for the amount of passes that he threw. So it was a lower rated game for him, but everybody had to admit that he is not 100%. So just the fact that everybody knows the reason he's playing is because his team needs him so bad. So everybody has to give him credit for gutting it out, playing when he's not 100%, playing when he's maybe injured. You don't want people playing injured all the time. It's not good for their health, but sometimes you have to put, the objectives of the team and the organization ahead of your own physical well-being. Like I said, he's getting paid a lot of money to do this. It's not like he's just going out there and doing it for a charity, or he's not volunteering his body just for free. He's definitely getting paid lots of money for this. So like I said, he wants to earn that contract that he just signed. He doesn't want to sit on the bench and watch his team go down in flames while he collects a bunch of money. So according to Joe Burrow, he expects himself to be on the way up. And I hope that's the way that the season goes. I hope the way the team is up and back on track and playing in the playoffs and having an exciting season all the way into February. Wouldn't that be great? But we covered so much in this Week 3 recap. It was a great win against the Rams. I think I'm going to call it here. There's enough content for right now, enough podcasting. So we'll cover everything that happened in terms of Week 3 around the NFL in the next episode. That'll be episode 12, where it's the Week 4 preview episode against the Tennessee Titans at Tennessee. Another road game coming up. So a short week for the Bengals. They only have 6 weeks between games. Tennessee, not looking great, but we'll cover them in the preview episode. So until that time, I'm going to leave you with a hoo-day and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.